The Midrash tells us about the story of this week's portion about Sodom and Gomorrah and its destruction, that part of their corruption was that they were simply cruel to each other in such a extreme way. For example, the Midrash says that when someone came to be there, came to live in Sodom, they had to, if they didn't fit the bed in their lodging, they would, if they were too short for the bed, they would stretch them cruelly, and if they were too long, they would cut their legs. Now, I always thought about this. What exactly is the Medrash telling us here? Now, it means different things, of course. It has many different meanings, this idea. But I want to share with you what I think it means in how it can relate to us in the way we treat others, especially when it comes to our own children. You see, many of us have 2 children, 3, 4, even many more. And every one of our children, as we know, is a unique world on their own. They're not the same. They're not like their brothers. They're not like their sisters. Every kid is individually carved out. He's a different child, a different way of thinking, a different way of feeling, and so on. But sometimes we make the mistake as educators, as parents. We have a certain way a certain understanding of how we think our family has to conduct itself, the name we want to maintain and preserve, the way of life, and so on. And sometimes a child seems to be a little too short for that mold. Sometimes they are a little longer and they don't fit. They're too long for that mold. They need a different mold. But what happens sometimes, what we do is, and this is cruel, when we try to stretch our children to fit our own mold and try to cut their legs, cut them down, slice them down to fit the way we think into a box that we think they need to fit. This, my friends, is the characteristic of Sodom and Gomorrah. You cannot educate and raise children that way. We have to understand that children are unique. Every one of them has their own set of the way they think, the way they develop, the way they feel, and you have to allow them to walk the path that makes sense for them. And I'm not talking about if they're going on a harmful way, God forbid. I'm talking about within the context of a normal path, but what may seem to us as a little abnormal. They dress differently. They behave a little differently. And we try to slice them down. We start to stretch them to fit the mother and father's mold, the way they want to project their children to the outside. How cruel that is. Your children are perfect the way they are. God created them with a set of talents, with a set way, the way they think and feel. Allow them to thrive in that mold, and try to guide them properly with the talents, the feelings, the intellectual ability that they have, that God gave them. Don't try to superimpose upon them your mold, your box, your bed. Because when you do that, you fall right into the attitude of Sodom and Gomorrah. And the end is very bad for you and for the children, because when you butt heads like that, it never ends well. Allow a kid to go in this path. Allow a kid to grow up the way he or she is meant to be. It may not fit your mold. It may be a little different. That's okay. That's your child. That's the way God created them. Embrace it and help them along and guide them so that they can maximize their own potential, not your potential. They're not there to serve you. They're not there to be anyone else other than themselves. Help them become the best they can become. Don't chop their legs. Don't stretch their legs. Let them be. Shabbat Shalom and all the best.